Hello, Chris Farrell here again, and welcome to another ShipChain Fireside Chat. It is great to have you here, and I am thrilled to be joined for the next few minutes by this good-looking so-and-so that you can see here on the screen. This is the guy that essentially oversees all the technical bits here at ShipChain, essentially that makes ShipChain happen. He's our Chief Technical Officer. Leeward is his name, and he joins us today for the next few minutes. Lee, great to have you here.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me. Really excited to get to talk to you today and take a little bit of time to talk to our community.
I appreciate that, Lee. Now, firstly, whereabouts are you? I know you travel around a lot. Whereabouts are you right now as we're having this conversation?
Oh, boy.
Whereabouts in the world
So today I'm in Athens, Greece, because this morning myself and three of our partners all got the chance to participate and present at the Decentralized Conference, which is sponsored by actually a local university, and they brought together a lot of great community leaders to talk about the potential future applications of blockchain technology. Sorry.
Cool. And you were speaking?
Yeah, so I was on a panel with our chief legal counsel, Aaron Kelly, our VP of Biz Dev, Clinton Senkow, and the panel was actually hosted by our chief marketing officer, Brian D. Evans. So that was really, really fun and exciting. We actually, some of our other panelists gave us some great feedback, and we got to hear some really cool opinions and just kind of interact with the community in really cool ways today. So it was really exciting.
Oh, Lee, that's great. Well, listen, I really want to jump in and find out exactly what you're doing and where ShipChain is going. Just before we do the quick bit about yourself, so let me just find out where are you from?
Where am I from? I grew up in a small town called Chelsea, Michigan. Went to school at Michigan State University for about 2 years, did not finish. Dropped out and moved to California. Halfway through, was working at internships, Microsoft, and basically moved to a sunnier place and joined the advertising industry. Lived in San Diego, California, working on high-scale, high-performance advertising tech for about a decade. And at that point, it was time to stretch my legs a little bit, and I moved with my girlfriend to Bangkok for a year.
Wow.
Which brings me to, after a year of Bangkok, it was time to come back home, but we didn't want to move back to the mainland, and we wound up in Puerto Rico. So that's where I'm presently based out of San Juan, except that I do tend to spend quite a bit of my time moving around the world. So,
have you always been into tech?
Basically my whole life. I started writing code. I guess maybe second or third grade sounds about right. And I think I was building my first websites about then and learning my first programming languages, before middle school. And then by the time I was in high school, I actually got a really cool opportunity to help teach a computer camp for kids that were older than me. So as I started young, and like I said, so coming out of that program, a lot of the alumni wound up getting internships and jobs at Microsoft. So I kind of had a leg up with the recruiting department. I already had an in over there, and took two summers of internships with them, at which point I was pretty much ready to get out of school and ready to go out on my own. And I kind of just jetted out from that snowy place and left my corporate job at Microsoft and went started working with tech startups in San Diego. I was 20 at the time. So
wow, man, that's insane. Well, I want to dig in and really kind of probe exactly what it is you are doing. But just before we do, apart from what you are doing, who else in the tech and the business world is doing something really exciting right now, would you say?
Well, I mean, I got to point at the Ethereum community. I've been infatuated with Ethereum since I first heard about it. Gosh, it might have been 2014, I think maybe 2015. Right around then, these guys started doing this really cool thing. I've been a big proponent of Bitcoin ever since the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper in 2010. I've started buying my first Bitcoins 2010, 2011, I think. First transaction that I remember, they were at $10, but it might have been, I don't know, it was somewhere early on. And right around that time, I was really interested in decentralization of money and finances, and the opportunities afforded when we disintermediate both federal central issuing authorities and also the banks that live at the heart of it all. and that was it. I mean, I thought it was cool. I was impassioned by it, and I left it at that. I never really picked up developing or anything. But several years later, I saw and found the Ethereum project building what looked like a crazy way of implementing code logic onto blockchains, and just kind of this fashion that I'd never considered possible before. And I thought that nobody had ever really kind of even dreamt of an idea like this. And it was just completely novel and completely exciting. And started experimenting and exploring with developing some smart contracts on that, but never really made it a full-time kind of thing. I stuck with the advertising, whatever paid the bills, and I had my contract work, and I was happy with that until about early last year, 2017. I was approached by some of my old ad tech partners who wanted to build a cryptocurrency exchange, which is still not decentralized technology, but it is kind of in the space. And obviously that looked like a fantastic play for us at the time with the explosion in basically attention and investment funds that we saw last year. And so I spent about 6 or 8 months, maybe 9 months of last year working on that. I built it from the ground up. I got the product basically from 0 to 60, and I kind of passed it along to the next developers that they hired, because I was ready to move on to the next opportunity on my plate. I'm really excited for ShipChain, and I linked up with them around the end of last year as we started to put together our
let me interrupt you there. So I wanted to ask you about this. You essentially, what I wanted to ask you was your experience in blockchain, but you've answered that. So you had a lot of experience in working with blockchain. You built this exchange, but you've now passed that on, and then ShipChain came about. So how did this whole ShipChain thing kind of come into your life?
Yeah, that's correct. So last year, around the middle and the end of the year, there was obviously an explosion of way too many products and way too many projects coming into the space.
This is end of 2017 we're talking about now.
Yeah, I'd call it like quarter 3 or so.
Okay.
And so I first of all, while I was working on these other gigs, living in Bangkok, I was approached by a number of other projects that needed assistance, how to say, like developing their white papers. Like these guys had ideas that weren't all the way there, or they had they had markets, they had potential investors, they had things that they were ready to build, but they kind of didn't have vision, or at least they didn't have a clear product plan. So I actually made a pretty good business for myself last year, just writing other people's white papers for them.
Wow.
And at first that was the grounds on which I started talking to the ShipChain team until as we started to work on this white paper, and they came to me with a great plan and a great idea. But I saw a couple of things that I thought, if we tweak this, if we approach this from a different angle, this isn't just a project or a product. This could actually be like an ecosystem. This could be a platform and a protocol that could really, in my humblest opinion, change the whole course of humanity. I really think that shipping and logistics is the oldest single industry on the face of the planet. We invented the wheel, and then we started moving things. And
it's still so archaic these days. It hasn't been updated.
Exactly. And so actually, if you take some time to read the ShipChain white paper, you'll see that like a lot of these same things that I'm saying right now, and like what you just said, like it's the oldest industry on earth. It really hasn't changed at all. And that's how I felt last year when I started writing this white paper, and it really struck me. And I was like, man, this is an opportunity for me to actually kind of make a mark and do something bigger than myself. And this is kind of the direction that I want to be going. And so I told them that I was interested in working with them more closely. And at that point, we kind of negotiated me into the CTO role. So I'm really excited to get to kind of dream up a project and then build it.
Well, listen, let me, what I want to do, I want to continue this, but I want to back up just for a moment, because for many that are watching this that may not be may be unaware of what blockchain even is. The reason I say that is it's very easy for, people like you and I, and probably many that are watching this, to forget that 99% of people don't even really understand what blockchain is. So just so everybody clear that's watching, can you kind of, give us 1 or 2 sentence definition? How would you describe, to the layperson, exactly what is this blockchain thing? I speak to most of my buddies, they haven't even heard of blockchain. So how would you describe what it is?
All right, let's see if I can boil this down. I think I'm getting pretty good at this. I think I'm getting pretty good at condensing this down really fast. So,
cool, man.
First of all, I don't really like the term blockchain in the first place. I think that it's overused to say, and then also, especially after the way that the last 2 years have gone, kind of almost even comes with negative connotations, and it's being misappropriated by some people that are building things that look like blockchains, but don't really have all of the core decentralized benefits of what Bitcoin originally promised in the first place. So I think that for something to qualify as what I consider to be part of this revolution, it has to be truly decentralized and truly trustless and truly censorship resistant, which means open and ungoverned, basically.
So when we say decentralized, just to be clear, we're saying decentralized means it's not controlled by one central authority. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely. There should be nobody with the power, and so this is the other side of the censorship resistant. There should be nobody with the power to stop anybody else from participating. And so I prefer to call this distributed ledger technology, DLT.
Distributed ledger technology, yeah. So essentially a public ledger of every transaction that takes place.
Exactly, and it's powered in a distributed manner. It's agreed upon and moved forward by the crowd. And so the way that things are evolving, this is kind of coming to be a little bit less true, but still generally a basic truth is the fact that if you download the Bitcoin software and you run a Bitcoin node, or if you download the Ethereum software and you run an Ethereum node, you actually retain on your computer a history of every single transaction, every single block, every single interaction that's ever happened. Plus, you also have a cryptographic signature. You have like a signed, stamped seal of the author of that transaction. So you can, assuming that everybody's been behaving honorably all the way along, and if not, we could talk about that later, but it's a whole nother, but anyway, assuming that everybody's been playing nice, then what you have is a whole list of all of these fair and valid transactions. And you can rebuild the whole history, from dating all the way back to the Genesis block 0. You can rebuild the entirety of the chain and then wind up with the current state. So you can see, Chris started with $1 million and he gave $1 to Lee and he gave $1 to John and he gave $1 to Sam. And then you check the balances 100 years later, and you've added up all the plus ones and the minus ones, and you see actually the same as what you should really be in your account. And I see the same as really what should be. So we call that fully auditable. And the fact that they can never be changed back in history, we call that immutable. So I think that these are like two of the key most important factors in distributed ledger technology that really actually make it remarkable and revolutionary, is the fact that you get assurances that nobody's been cheating, or for example, the Federal Reserve hasn't been printing more money without telling you. It's always a thing to be concerned about. It's like the rate at which the Fed decides to spur inflation or what have you. There's all sorts of concerns in systems that are governed by centralized authorities. You never really have any guarantee that history isn't being tampered with in some sort of a way. And so I feel that actually a thing that I like to say is that distributed ledger technology, blockchain technology, is in some ways a bigger step forward, a bigger improvement for humanity than even computers and the internet. Because if we had to crunch the numbers by hand and do cryptography by hand and send messages by carrier pigeon, and we're just indigenous tribes spread throughout the world, the ability for humans to communicate trustlessly and in a decentralized manner and to self-govern without centralized authorities is without a doubt the biggest revolution that has ever occurred in any of our lives, or in any of the lives of anybody you've ever met. I really think that this is the turning point in history where everything really begins to change. I mean, I feel strongly about it. I just gave myself goosebumps.
You're explaining this so well. I love that term you said, immutable ledger. That's kind of essentially sort of what this is. Let me ask you though, if you explain this to your parents, do your parents get things like this?
my mom, since I was like 5 years old, my mom sent me every technology article that she finds on something that's like new and interesting that I should stay on top of. And I did hear about Bitcoin before my mom did, but not much before. Like my mom's been sending me Bitcoin articles. And so does she understand it? Probably more than most. Does she like really, could she code one? No, definitely not. But she gets it, and she's been with it basically the whole time along. So, I mean, yeah, to a degree, and I kind of the flip side of the coin is I'd say like Chris, do you understand how your Visa card works? Do you understand how your Amex works when you swipe it at a terminal? Is it important for the average consumer to really understand it? And like how much
really.
proliferation of knowledge is really necessary? But at the same time, blockchain itself is not that complicated of a concept. It's kind of mind-blowing for most people to wrap their heads around, and especially when you put it in terms like like this is the biggest revolution in the history of mankind, and so on and so forth. So like it's a lot to absorb, but it's kind of simple. Just the agreement that like I can make a ledger entry and I'm going to prove that I'm not lying, and you can make a ledger entry and you're going to prove that you're not lying. So at the end of the day, we're going to have a ledger of truthful interactions, and anybody can audit it. It's another way of referring to it I've heard is triple ledger accounting, or sorry, triple entry accounting, which is like a play on classic accountants prefer double entry accounting because it leads to fewer errors. And so this is I guess like a pun or an iteration on that.
I have to say, my mum doesn't even text me, so your mum's a lot more technologically advanced than my mum at the moment.
I'll tell my mom to send you some texts so you don't feel.
That's where I was going with that comment. So I appreciate you picking up on the subtext there.
Cool.
So let's talk about ShipChain in particular. So ShipChain's main objective essentially is, I think it's fair to say, is to make transport and logistics more efficient, secure, and transparent. That's the message, central message, led by John Monach, the CEO. Can you explain to me then, sort of in layman's terms, how is ShipChain going to incorporate blockchain to make this happen?
Sure. So in the first place, if you think about Bitcoin and why Bitcoin got a foothold and why it's a popular idea, is because currencies are a global system of trade that are federated by central authorities and brokered by intermediaries, the banks, right? And the central tenet is that, first of all, we don't really necessarily trust the issuing authorities, which is to say that even if you do trust your government, and even if you do love your government, and even if you don't think that they're ever going to freeze or place a lien on any of your accounts, you still don't know that they're going to be there in 50 years. Nobody has these assurances. So in the first place, we don't trust our governments. Like we shouldn't trust our governments to issue the fiat that our retirement accounts are going to be held in. And in the second place, the brokerages, the banks, in my opinion, I don't know what your opinion is on the subject necessarily, Chris, but I think a $45 fee to send $100 to a relative overseas is ridiculous. I was living, like I said, in Thailand for the last year, and every time I wanted to move money from my U.S. bank account to my Thai bank account, the fee was $45 on one end and $15 on the other end. So it was about $60. So it never actually made sense for me to move less than $6,000 at once, and that's still just a 1% fee, which is like actually kind of a lot of money. And so all that, getting back to your original question, why is blockchain going to help shipping and logistics? Because blockchain and distributed ledger technology is designed to cut through intermediated trade arrangements. It's where is a distributed ledger useful? It's useful anytime that there's a brokerage in the center that's not necessarily behaving honorably or in the best interest of the two people that it's connecting. So Bitcoin disintermediates banks. ShipChain is working on disintermediating the broker relationships. And so kind of another facet of what we're doing, another reason that this is going to be useful and important, is because in shipping technology right now, like you said, very, very much still in the Stone Age. Literally, if you have a truck driving from New York to Los Angeles right now, that truck is required by state and federal laws to carry a physical paper, I believe with the identification of the driver, but also definitely with the bill of lading, the physical contents of what's in the back of the truck. And I mean, it has to be a physical piece of paper. Like you can't have it on an iPad, and it's got to be the original document.
That's so
sometimes the truck is stuck waiting in New York. It can't leave for LA until FedEx arrives from London with the original bill of lading.
That's amazing.
They have to FedEx it separately to New York so that the truck driver can then take off and drive. And that's not
what shipping. Flawed business plan, isn't it?
No. So that's only one very small part of the problem that I'm trying to describe. Here's another very small part of the problem that I'm trying to describe. We've talked to partners that have trucks moving across the United States, and they have five to six to seven sometimes different GPS tracking devices in the cab of the truck. One of them is for fleet management and dispatch. One of them is for insurance, basically hard braking detection and like a forward-facing camera. And one of them is it's a GPS tracker, but it's also keeping the temperature in the trailer, and so on and so forth. So there's all these different systems, and this hardware, these boxes. I mean, we're producing these boxes right now. Like there's not really a good way to produce them and maintain them for. I mean, like just assume them to be, I don't know, to $20 to $50 to maybe $100 a box, depending on what goes into it. But that's pretty expensive, especially for 7 of these boxes living in one truck. Never mind that they all need a cellular data connection, which can cost $3 to $5 to $10 a month per box. Why the redundancy, Chris? Why? So there's a huge problem with interoperability, a lack of open data standards and interchange formats, and closed and proprietary protocols. And then this is kind of a nuanced point. As I was talking to this one particular partner that was describing this one particular set of circumstances to us, I said, okay, so if you want to pull a list of where all of your trucks are, or if you want a list of all of your trucks that are in the state of Texas right now, which of your systems can you ask? And he said, oh, okay, well, we can ask these guys. I was like, no, they're a third party. And we can ask these guys. Oh, they're a third party. They're a third party. I was like, if all your third party vendors, for some reason, whatever reason, you're being investigated for murder and everybody doesn't want to deal business with you anymore. If all of your third parties stop providing you with services, do you have a copy of your data?
Yeah, I see where you're going with this.
No, we don't. So everybody has a copy of their data, but them, the company in ownership right now. So all that being said, it's not blockchain technology. This is just good technology design, and it's lacking in logistics. There's a lack of open protocols, open standards, and interoperability in shipping and logistics. And in order to bring blockchain technology, distributed ledger technology to the shipping and logistics space, first of all, it's imperative that we work on developing all of these open standards, basically a way of describing a shipment, a way of describing a route, a way of describing, the contents of the shipment, a way of describing where the shipment is. Is the shipment a land shipment, a sea shipment, a plane shipment, et cetera? Is it going to space? Is it taking underwear to astronauts? I don't know. And so we're working on developing all of these open formats. We're working on developing another series of standards for companies being able to keep a copy of all of their own data on their own servers, on premise. So we're working on liberating data ownership, opening data description formats and protocols.
It's phenomenal.
And then from there, we're working on developing a ledger for, in a trustless manner, everybody being able to cooperate and agree on where a particular shipment is. Because, let me give you one more common problem that we've heard about more than once. Say a truck is shipping some commodities, all sorts of commodities, everything from oil and gas to precious metals. Let's say a ship is, a particular particular truck is shipping some commodities across some territory, and if it starts the trip empty and it refills somewhere along the way, more often than not, about 90% of the time, Chris, these vehicles are operated not by the company that owns the commodities or the shipping arrangement. They're operated by a third-party vendor, and they're being refilled by a third-party vendor. And so what happens is that the guy on the road and the guy at the refill station, nobody's got any skin in the game, and it's all being coordinated by a third-party broker.
Yeah.
Whereas the company that's trying to acquire these materials is actually, they don't get real-time tracking, they don't get real-time updates, they don't have any idea. And so they'll be told something like, your truck was refilled at a price of $100 per pound on Thursday afternoon at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
But that might not be true.
Yeah.
It might have been refilled on Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. And the price between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. in commodities markets can be drastic differences.
Sure.
And I don't mean to accuse anybody of behaving necessarily completely dishonest, but there's a very real chance that the brokerage company responsible for orchestrating this arrangement, the brokerage company that in the first place was failing to get real-time tracking data to the other party, they might be the one that winds up accidentally winding up with the difference in costs between, 1,000 pounds at 2 p.m. versus at 5 p.m. of whatever commodity we're talking about. So this is a very real problem. We've heard about this from several different angles, and that's why a distributed ledger, an immutable single source of truth,
yes,
and open interchange formats are actually sorely missing. A huge problem, like just an enormous potential for distributed ledger technology. That's what we're building at ShipChain right now.
It's so interesting speaking to you about this. I totally get what you're saying, because there's individual tracking systems in place, aren't there? But not this immutable ledger that's kind of essentially, tracking from, track and trace, as John Monnet, the CEO, describes it.
Right. And we're hoping to introduce different parties together and build a marketplace for, drivers to be able to meet shippers directly. It's going to be a little bit further down the road, because I just blurted a mouthful. We've got our work cut out with lots to build right now, but that is the ultimate promise, is to build a network for connecting drivers directly with the people trying to ship their goods, and hopefully kind of removing the necessity for these brokerages in the first place. The brokerage is often doing little more than introducing two parties and sometimes charging 30 to 50% markups for it. Yeah. But that's, again, like, we've got so many interesting problems to solve along the way as we get there. And so I really, that was your question like almost 10 minutes ago now. That's why blockchain technology for shipping and logistics. Well, Chris, lots of great reasons.
Well, Lee, listen, I'm just slightly conscious of time as well. So I want to begin to wrap up, if I may. There's a couple of other things I just want to throw out at you, however. Can you, I completely understand, as in all good businesses solve a problem, and there's lots of problems that need to be addressed and solved. So clearly there's a lot of, potential to what could be solved here. Can you give me an overview of how far along development is, and ideally what's sort of the next big milestone that we can look forward to seeing from you and ShipChain?
Excuse me, sir. So we currently have our track and trace platform live. We are able to work with internal fleets. I guess the way that I describe it is that we're able to work with anybody where trustlessness is not a requirement, which is to say, if you're a carrier, or if you're a driver, or if you're a product owner, and you have the ability to integrate with one of your systems, and if we're able to integrate it with one of your systems on your behalf, if we're able to pull the data, then you're able to leverage ShipChain, keep a copy of your data on premise. You could put one of our boxes in one of your trucks and track and trace those trucks. You're able to perform all of those functions right now on our current web platform. All of that is live and functional, with our 1.0 launching in January as our next major milestone. So we've kind of been getting this ready all year. And our first client started to really use the system as of last summer. And then coming into like fall and winter, we're really trying to.
How's that being? How's that first client? How's their kind of their feedback been to this platform?
They feel like they got what they hoped out of it. They tracked and traced the truck, and they had the data points that they wanted on their systems on site. So they know that they're always going to be able to go back and access, the associated fleet management data with that. So when I talk about fleet management, basically what I'm saying is that anybody is able to track and trace vehicles. To me, this is only like I say, this is version 1. This is just only the beginning, because the real meat and potatoes, what I really want to get into again is the different parties being able to work together off the same sets of data. So if a driver is driving a ShipChain connected truck, then what I want is for the shipper to be able to log into their ShipChain account and see that shipment's worth of the driver's data. Like right now, it's in a silo. The driver can use it or the shipper can use it, but they're not able to co-integrate yet. So after our 1.0 launch, that's what we'll be spending most of next year on, is basically trying to build everything from data sharing utilities to eventually the ability to meet one another on a marketplace and start to arrange shipping at that. The ability to find a driver, see his reviews and his ratings, orchestrate a shipment, and then maybe even like submit a complaint if things don't go well. So that's what's on the horizon for us.
And let me just, I just want to wrap up. I want to ask you one more thing. I keep hearing a ton about the logistics and shipping industry, how prevalent fraud is. The FBI released a metric that I'm sure you've heard. They said that the average theft value per shipment, the average is $190,000 per shipment.
Yeah, I think it's like $30 billion a year, isn't it?
Just
something
in theft.
Like that. Yeah, just in theft. And that's everything from like
eradicate, the immutable ledger, as we keep saying. This will solve that.
Well, solve is a tricky word, huh? Well, I mean, if it falls off the map, it falls off the map. Like there's certain real world problems that technology is never really going to be able to solve. But like for example, I've heard that $30 billion figure is probably underreported, because a lot of private enterprises, either because they want to avoid, either because they want to avoid insurance premiums going up, or they want to save face and avoid, like the news of a scandal or whatever. Like let's say like I totally hypothetical situation. I don't know. Let's say a shipping container is going across the ocean and 10 containers fall off of it. There might be instances in where that's not reported. And so I think that's like these kinds of like, I guess that's kind of like I said, like if it falls off the map, it falls off the map. But at the same time, if some of those containers had a track and trace unit on it, then maybe kind of like the accountability is there such that other players aren't able to lie. And if again, like that there's obviously cases where if a cargo unit is like left in the wrong drop off location, or if it's hijacked moving down the road, or like one thing that we're definitely working on is door open sensors for containers, because first of all, when you're moving food or medical supplies, it's inappropriate for the driver to open the door at any point except for like a customs inspection, basically, right? And so that can, in like a refrigerated trucking unit, that can actually indicate the potential to spoil the goods. So that's a real risk. But moreover, if a box falls off the back of the truck and you're able to see that the doors were opened at a specific point along the way, we have the real potential to address and reduce cargo theft in some interesting ways. I can't really say that we're gonna solve the problem. There's a lot of opportunities to solve, though, for sure.
I would have thought at the very least.
Yeah,
Lee, I'm gonna let you run, because I know you've just come off stage at this event in Greece, and I have to tell you, I actually this is going to sound a bit sycophantic now. I had heard, because we've never met, you and I, although we were at the meet in Japan in a couple of months. I had heard that speaking to you is just so like mind-blowingly interesting. And I just want to say on behalf of everybody watching, this has been absolutely fascinating. What you are doing, the vision, the kind of the bigger picture is quite astounding to hear, direct from the Chief Technical Officer himself. So I appreciate your time, my man, very much.
I appreciate your time. I mean, I love every opportunity to flab my jaw, and I really appreciate your having me on. And I look forward to getting to do this with you again, really.
Well, Lee, you're a top man. Appreciate your time. Check in with you soon.